We did freedom of information requests with the NPCA to try to get information on this. Of course, they have been refusing all of our requests along these lines. We know that it was litigated in Toronto. We know that it has been settled. We have the documents from the Toronto courthouse. We had to drive there and get them personally. You can't get these online. However, in the judgment, they sealed, at the request of both parties, they sealed the amount of the settlement. So we don't know what they settled for, but we know that the case has been settled. Why in Toronto? I would only be speculating.
Doug Draper, I was a full-time environment writer for almost 20 years at the Standard a number of years ago, and I'm retired now, and I've got an online news site called Niagara at Large and cover this. It's not necessarily a question for you, Ed, but it's a question through you, if you don't mind, to the room. I know from covering meetings like this in the past that there is sometimes a member of the Conservation Authority that decides to show up and is somewhere in the audience or a surrogate on their behalf. If that's the case, I wish they would do us the courtesy of identifying themselves. And if that's the case, I wish they'd do us the courtesy of letting we, the taxpayers of this area, know how much money is being spent on this kind of stuff. In other words, when we go in and pay a ticket to the Thanksgiving Balls Falls, and we think that money's going to good works to look after our conservation area, how much of that is going to lawsuits, to defending themselves against people that they've dismissed possibly wrongly? How much? Never mind non-disclosure. That's ridiculous. This is our money. This is our money. We have a right to know how much money they settled. We're doing a budget at the region right now, and there's a line in there to give these guys millions of dollars of our money again. How much is going for this kind of stuff when we think it should be going to green works in our region? Is there anyone here from the Conservation Authority that would like to answer that question? I think we should be asking it of them every day, 24/7, until we get answers. Is there anyone here? Speak up. Sir?
I'm on the advisory board for the Conservation Authority.
Okay.
Citizens
Yes.
Advisory Board. And these numbers have been presented to us to the tune of $11 million coming from the taxpayers of the region to support the Conservation Authority, along with $500,000 for the purpose of purchasing properties. Well, everybody on that advisory board can't really understand why they need more money to buy more properties. They already own 100 in the Niagara region already. And it's absolutely mind-boggling to the people on that advisory board. They don't listen to us. My advice several meetings ago was that the Conservation Authority should be disbanded and all their properties be turned over to the municipalities and have the municipalities sell off what they don't need and let the municipalities look after the parks and the properties, not the Conservation Authority, because it's turned into a disaster. It's just a money pit. That's what this thing's turned into.
Do you mind giving us your name, sir?
Mo Edwards.
Mo Edwards?
Right.
And which advisory board do you sit on for the conservation?
Well, I sit on the what they call the liaison
Okay.
advisory board for the Conservation Authority. To get on it, we had to submit an application, and I represent the Niagara Landowners Association. Okay? And, the whole thing is actually when it first started, and this is one thing you people should keep in mind, this advisory board was started a few years ago as a result of the Dave White case that the Conservation Authority lost against Dave White. And the Conservation Authority has operated for, I think, since 1952 without an advisory board. And they were supposed to have one many years ago. And after they lost that case, somebody tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, you're not operating in accordance to the Conservation Act, which states that you're supposed to have a citizens advisory board and and they're supposed to have input as to what you do. Well, they don't listen to us. But if you notice, every time Bruce Timms makes a press release, he always mentions, oh, the advisory board under the direction of, well, give me a break. Hey, he's not bringing out the truth. He's not telling you what the advisory board is telling them at the meetings. And furthermore, the minutes get turned around. Certain things get left out of the meetings, of the minutes of the meetings.
Can I ask you a question? Has this taken a personal toll on you when you first got the letter threatening legal action, and your character's obviously been accused over and over again? How's it affected you,
So, yeah, I can tell you what happens when you first get that letter. You get filled with self-doubt for that moment, and it is a moment. But then the lasting effect is within your household. So although I may stand here and say, I will not back down, and I won't, I am married, I do have a wife, and she feels the stress of it. So it disrupts the household in that fashion. It's a lot easier on me, if I can put it that way. Not that it's easy, but I don't think these guys realize how they can galvanize you. I guess the best way to say it is whoever is advising the NPCA doesn't seem to be particularly skilled at it, because they are doing all of the things that I believe will galvanize this community against them. I mean, and I'm going to go back to that point one more time because I just think it's so important. Our Conservation Authority is coming out demanding the names of the collaborators on that document. The Conservation Authority, what are they, the RCMP? Are they CSIS? Who are they to demand names from anybody on anything? In their world, in their minds, they are apparently powerful enough to do that. And then my question to them becomes, what did you have in mind to do with those names?
Furthermore, as a member of the advisory board to the Conservation Authority, when the advisory board was formed, everybody was requested to sign a confidentiality form. Most did, I didn't. I told Bruce Timms, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I said, I'm not an employee of the Conservation Authority, I'm not being paid to sit on this board, and I'm not signing no confidentiality form. So then they threatened me, they said, oh, well, if that's the case, you won't be able to sit in on certain meetings. Well, we'll just play it out, we'll see. But there, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any certain meetings. But this is a very, very gray area when they start asking members of the public to sign a confidentiality form to sit on an advisory board. What are you hiding?
Exactly. Mike, sorry.
My name is Mike Haynes. I'm with Cindy Forrester, and Cindy's been helping Ed with this matter. We had a meeting on Monday. Usually meetings in our office are confidential, and that's the way we took it. But Bruce Timms said it was not a private meeting, so that article was in the paper that you saw with Cindy and Bruce commenting. From what we could get out of the meeting, they were basically just trying to intimidate Cindy into not pushing this matter, not using the prompts to try and maneuver into the NPCA. It's, they said they're transparent and open, and Cindy said, well, if you're so transparent and open, then why not cooperate with it when it comes to the FOI requests? None of those, I think it was, 5 pages for $900?
Right.
Yeah. Also in that meeting was the issue I brought up, was the issue they had in Hamilton, where they went to that city a couple of years ago and said, due to accounting changes, we need $830,000. I think that was the amount. Now, I asked what was happening with that. That is still being discussed. And Mr. Timms did indicate that money has been set aside. That money has been set aside. That's our money. That's taxpayers' money. And I said, where is that in the line-by-line items that are in these audited statements? Nowhere to be found. So that's what we're saying. You can say you've done the statements, but it doesn't really reflect what's happening. And people aren't, like Cindy said, these are taxpayers approaching her. It's not something, she's not targeting the NPCA as they seem to think, but she will continue to push the minister on getting involved with the NPCA. I want to commend the work that Ed's doing, and I want to commend the work that Brian's been doing, and Dave Augustine, and anyone else who's out there. Mo, if you're out there, that's great. And thank you.
If I can actually follow up on that, when we talk about the minister, since that was brought up, in her response to Cindy Forster's request for an audit, the minister said, in very political talk, she said no, but if we ever were aware of accounting irregularities, then we would get involved. We have identified now to the minister's staff at least 3 major accounting irregularities. I sent that email myself. There are egregious accounting irregularities in this financial statements that are available online. And this is not Ed Smith telling you this, because I'm not qualified to tell you that. I submitted those financial statements to a forensic auditor. And in 30 minutes, he outlined 3 accounting irregularities that said if this was us who did this audit, we would disqualify it right now. I have sent those observations to the minister's staff, saying you have said that if there are accounting irregularities, you will get involved. Here are accounting irregularities. I haven't heard anything from them, nor do I expect to, and so be it.
Sorry, when did you send that in?
About 10 days ago. And so you know, because I can quickly define what the accounting irregularities are. They are in accounting, and I learned this just as I was sitting there with the accountant. In public governance boards and things like that, there is a responsibility to disclose related party transactions. Basically, you're not allowed to give contracts to board members and things like that. So if for some extreme reason you are compelled to do these related party transactions, you have to disclose it in your financial statement. It's not on the auditor, like Grant Thornton is the auditor. It's not on the auditor to find that. You have to come forward and publicly disclose it when the auditor shows up and said, well, we had some related party transactions this year, and this is why. And then it gets noted in the financial statement. There have been numerous related party transactions at the NPCA. None of them have been disclosed, but we have evidence on all of them. And they are not, and these are related party transactions in the $40,000 and $50,000 range. This is not a couple $100 going to someone on the board for a simple contract or something. There are accounting irregularities going on at the NPCA. We need higher level authorities looking into what's going on there.
Just so I can get some clarification. Your point for May 2015 for Councilor Petrowski's company, Value Media Corp, aka Corporate Sponsorship Management. It's also referred to in some of the other documents as Cornerstone Sponsorship Management. Is it both, or is one just a typo?
It's Cornerstone. One's a typo if it's in there wrong. It's Cornerstone Sponsorship Management. Although the documents from the courthouse in Toronto,
Yeah.
the NPCA is now saying, because they're being sued by Cornerstone, they had a contract with Cornerstone, they're now being sued by Cornerstone, and the NPCA lawyers, as you'll see when you go through the documents, are saying, you can't sue us because you don't really exist. There is no company called Cornerstone Sponsorship Management. Although the NPCA made a contract with them. So I don't know what that means, but I leave that out there. And
That's the same letter Cindy, right?
yes,
From Cornerstone.
yes,
And that's the same view you're taking, right?
absolutely, yes,
I will not be intimidated.
exactly.
What was that, Ed?
He was asking, I've actually got two letters from, I received a letter from the NPCA threatening legal action, and and also from Cornerstone Sponsorship Management. So he was just asking, am I taking the same stance with Cornerstone Sponsorship Management, which is no. And yes, I am taking the same stance. Although I'm not doing that one publicly because the real goal is not Cornerstone Sponsorship Management. I don't know very much about that company at all. The real goal is the NPCA.
There's a lot of money changing hands here between boards, between regional counselors who get salaries, counselors who are voting on contracts, that move back and forth between boards. And we know that there are, I believe it's 12 regional counselors on the NPCA board, is that
11.
correct?
There's 11.
11?
Thorold has a citizen. Has a citizen, but the other 11 municipalities have councillors.
So, why is there so many regional counselors on the NPCA board? Have you ever addressed that? And isn't it important that people that are on the Conservation Authority know something about conservation?
They don't. They don't even know their own
I think
act.
that's a really,
That's the whole
really
problem.
great
None of them
point.
do.
So obviously, I'm no expert on this, but there are 36 conservation authorities in Ontario. Some of them do the exact same model as we do, and we have been reaching out to communicate with them. And almost exclusively, the ones who try to do this model of pure political representation on the board, they're struggling with that model, if I can say that. I don't know that they're struggling as much as we are here in Niagara. I think Niagara is a very, very particular case. Things have gone, and if you ask me, if you attend a few regional council meetings and then you attend a few NPCA board meetings, you can start to put two and two together. There's a lot of what maybe we as taxpayers would call dysfunction, and that would be kind, I think. So yeah, I would put forward to you that the NPCA board should be made up of stakeholders. And so there should be representatives from the Landowners Association, there should be environmentalists, there should be citizen scientists, there should be professional scientists, if that's such a word. And there should be some political representation also, but they should not be the controlling interest on that board.
And I just wanted to add that in 1996, the province changed the fact that you used to have a provincial rep on NPCA boards as well. That was dropped because they wanted more autonomy at the local level.
Yes, thank you. If I could say they appointed 5 people, and among the 5, the chairman had to be appointed by the province. And that was the law until Harris changed the law. And it's interesting, Mr. Mays, who's one of the members of the board, he was voted for that change. Yeah.
Lawsuit is against the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and the foundation, isn't it? I don't understand that. There's 2 things there.
Yeah, and in fact, in response to some of my freedom of information requests, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority said, first they just said no. You can appeal that no to the Privacy Commissioner in Toronto, which I did. So then the Privacy Commissioner comes in, and they're a neutral party, and they will take a look at the documents, and they will decide if citizens have a right to see those documents or not. And so I made appeals to the conservation or to the Privacy Commissioner. When the Privacy Commissioner got involved, the NPCA revised their decision. So first they said no. They used fancy language, but in the end it means no. They revised it and said, we can't give you the documents because in fact, those documents belong to the Conservation Foundation, not the Conservation Authority. Conservation Authority is covered by Public Freedom of Information Act. The Conservation Foundation is not. I don't know if technically or legally they're right or not, but I can tell you this. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation, the offices are in the NPCA headquarters at 250 Thorold Street in Welland. The board of the Conservation Foundation is Bruce Timms, Sandy Annunziata, and Bates, Regional Councilor Bates. All three of them sit on the NPCA board too. So they're wearing two hats and.
They're wearing the same trousers.
Right. And it seems like there's a shell game of confusion going on. So you ask for things and they say, no, we can't give you that because it's a Conservation Foundation issue and the foundation doesn't have to respond to Freedom of Information requests.
So who pays that lawsuit then? Conservation Authority or Conservation Foundation?
It's a good question. In the lawsuit that was held in Toronto, it's listed as a lawsuit against the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, but then, and I don't understand all the legal talk, but then it also lists the foundation. But they're all the same people, all the same location, they're just different legal entities, I guess, and it's taxpayer money. Who's paying the foundation or the authority for whatever was settled in that lawsuit? I have no idea. Yeah, that's it. We are. That's a lot of money.
In the statement that Mr.
Could you
Tim.
just have one person talking at the same time?
Okay.
Thanks.
In the statement that Bruce Timms put out a week or so ago defending himself in the NPCA around what Mr. Smith is doing, he said at one point that he can't understand why we go on, or people go on looking at the NPCA when we got out of the biodiversity offsetting, that initiated it, and now here we are going on and on and on. I get the impression that there are more connections, more dots to connect with the NPCA and Thundering Waters and who's involved that merits continuing to look at them both. And that his point that what are the Thundering Waters people looking at us anymore for may not be a good way of putting it.
Right. So I would agree with that, and I would tell you that, and actually Dr. Baca wrote an article on this just yesterday, I think it was. The statement by Bruce Timms about the whole Thundering Waters and biodiversity offsetting and all of that being with the OMB now is patently not true. They're not even close to being at an OMB process yet. I won't go into the details on this, but, and I don't know if it was Bruce Timms misspeaking or intentionally misleading, and I won't even speculate on that, but I can tell you that what he said in that article left me wanting. Let's just put it that way.
The one question I have, my name is Willie Wackledge. I've had a Freedom of Information in for some time with the same people that you're dealing with right here now, with the conservation, with the city, with whoever, and they just keep giving me this runaround, and I put it in to the Toronto, just like yourself, back in October 1st, 2015, and I just got a letter back, or not just got a letter, I've had to call them, but the last response I had with them was September the 23rd, 2016, that I was going to the adjudicator. I had a certain amount of time to get that information to the adjudicator, or he's making a decision. So I gave him so much information again that I have, and I said, there's even more. His question back to me is, am I allowed to send this to the conservation? So they're playing both sides here. And then when I called them back again and asked them what's happening here with my request, what's the status? They said to me, well, we just got the information. I says, what do you mean you just got the information? This was supposed to be, you put a date of October 7th, 2016 that they had to get this to you. Well, we extended it again to them. So this baloney has happened again and again. And the guy said to me on the phone was, it could take another 2 to 3 months yet. I says, what do you mean? Well, now the adjudicator's got it all in front of him. He's got to go over it, and then he's going to make his decision. So it just shows you again, I've been through that with the same parties up for years, and I'm in court again for the same thing again, and it's ridiculous, because they have not produced the information to me. And in one of their answered letters back to me, they said they had a computer glitch. So some of the files aren't there. Really? Okay. But they're still taking me to court. Thank you.
I have one question with regards to why the Niagara Regional Police handed over the documents to a higher order. Is that because they snuck Carmen D'Angelo in as CAO of the region without anybody really knowing, and then it became a conflict of interest?
I don't know the definitive answer as to why the NRP did it, but what I can tell you what they told me, and for me it makes good sense. No matter which way the NRP, the Niagara Regional Police, decided on that report, because that report was submitted to the Niagara Regional Police. If they decided to investigate, there are a certain faction of people who would say, well, they're only doing that to get revenge or whatever. If they decided not to investigate, another faction of people would say, well, they did that because they're buddies with so-and-so. They were in a conflicted situation. No matter which decision they made, they could be seen, and I think reasonable, it was a reasonable decision they made. They could be seen to be in a conflict of interest because these are their politicians too. And so certainly I'm not an expert. I think it was reasonable of them to decide to pass it on to the OPP. They didn't share a lot of the reasoning with me. They just said it's a conflict for us. And I accept that at face value. And the OPP have been in contact with me about the report. Their investigation is open and active, and they will be contacting me for an interview in the next 2 to 3 weeks, is what I was told.
I'm wondering what we can do as community members to assist you with your fight and push this forward so that there is some sort of investigation that does happen, that this doesn't just get pushed under the carpet because of all the higher ups in politics that are involved. And what can we do to help you and your family proceed in this? Do you need assistance as well?
At this time, no. I don't have a legal advisor or a lawyer, nor do I plan to get one, because I think that's how you lose a lawsuit. When you're a person of small means, yes, they try to drain you financially, and then you will walk away from it just to preserve yourself. I feel pretty confident that I can handle whatever they think they're going to throw at me. However, I also know that confidence is sometimes your worst enemy. So, and I've never done this before, so we'll just have to wait and see. What I would say that people this is not just about, as I've been saying since I stood up here, these are our basic democratic rights. This is a regional government that is trying to impose its will unchallenged on the people. And it believes, it intrinsically to their core, in their DNA, they believe that nobody can stop them. And that doesn't even, it's not only at the NPCA. Go spend some time at regional council and watch the meetings that go on there. I have had citizens. Regional council is our house. It's the people's house. It's where we interact with our regional government. I have citizens come up to me and say, would you take this issue to the council? And I say, but it's your issue. Why wouldn't you take it? Oh no, do you see the way they treat citizens there? I would never stand up in front of those guys. Because if they don't like the message, they will do their best to crucify the messenger. If you stand there in front of them and they don't like what you're saying, they're going to let you know. They forget who works for who. And the only thing that changes that is citizen involvement.
It's pretty difficult to speak in front of council too, because in my case, my name's Dave Honey. I'm president of the Niagara Landowners Association, and I had been going to them for probably 2 years prior, before you started, asking for similar things. And then I was very concerned because there were so many mayors sitting on the board of the Conservation Authority, And in that case, there was a conflict of interest for them because there are so many people in the communities around here that have been taken to court by the conservation authorities for doing simple little things like dumping 2.5 loads of topsoil on their property without a permit. Well, under a allodial title, it's our land. But at the same time, these mayors who should be supporting their own constituents can't do it because they're sitting on the board of the Conservation Authority condemning them.
It's an incestuous circle.
Exactly, and that it's self-perpetuating and it's feeding themselves.
I think we've drawn to a conclusion. So you know what, I'm gonna, because, you did ask about how you can help. This is what I'm gonna say, because stay tuned, I guess, is the right words. And if it starts to get legal, and I'll probably open my first law book and realize very quickly I'm in way over my head, then I'll reach out. We'll do some funding thing. I'm not backing down from the NPCA at any cost. If they think I'm wrong, they're gonna have to prove it in a court. And so if they wanna take it there, that's where it'll go. I'm actually thinking of demanding an apology from them. I'll write the apology. I would just encourage everyone, just stay tuned. Let's see what happens. The deadline is tomorrow, December 1st, and then I'll be waiting to hear from them. And whatever I hear from them, you're going to hear, because it's whatever they send to me, they're sending to the public.
And I just want some clarification too here. I was told that lobbying the government helps. So I understand that the chain of command is that the region should be looking into the NPCA, and that if they don't, then the provincial government gets involved, and then it goes higher. Is that correct?
I would suggest that if you want to push the government as well, along with Cindy and the other MPPs that are involved. Cindy's talked to Monique Taylor and Hamilton, and also Andrea, and there are a large number of MPPs that are backing up Cindy, Wayne, and Falls. The best thing you could do is go online, look for the MNR, the Minister of Natural Resources, and just even send her an email or just say, I'm in the Niagara region, we're dealing with the NPCA issue, and we're asking for a forensic audit of the NPCA. And that's it. But
Okay.
If you can get the citizens to mount this attack as well, it's not an attack, it's our right to know what's happening with all these tax dollars, so that helps as well. It helps Cindy, it helps, and it helps all of us get the answers that we want. Like something's gone horribly wrong with the NPCA.
Okay. Okay.
Don't be distracted when they try to confuse the issues with, you can't do a forensic audit because it requires a focus, it requires this or that. The language isn't important. We're not experts. The intent is important. And if we use the word forensic audit when we should have used an operations audit or something else, that doesn't matter. They're going to try to confuse the issue and say, yeah, you don't even know what you're talking about. We know what we're talking about. You know when something is rotten, and you know when you want it looked into. Let the experts put in the right words. Don't get confused when you see them trying to disrupt with this kind of talk.
I'd just like to say, it's wonderful that everybody wants to write. But one tiny little thing is, it's a lot easier to delete an email than it is to pretend a letter didn't come in. So I'm urging everyone to put it on paper, put it in an envelope and mail it, because they can't ignore that as easily as they can an email. Thank you.
Only if it's registered.
I'm hearing what she's saying, but an email, you still have proof you sent it and proof of delivery. You don't in a letter.